Hey guys! I think I'm live. Looks like I am. I just want to thank you guys for being flexible with me this week and allowing me to do a live post with you. I'm really excited about it. We have been walking through how to have a quiet time with God, and I'm really excited. Hi, Wendy. Really excited to do a live post today talking about how to pray. And so I want to give you a little bit of a background on like how I grew up, so you kind of know where I'm coming from. I grew up in a house where prayer was like a big deal, and my parents prayed all the time for everything. But I didn't actually become a Christian until I was like 22. And so once I became a Christian, ended up having my own family and things like that, I had to establish my own prayer life. And it was not easy, especially kind of having that as a standard. You know, my parents' prayer life is like a standard. And so I kind of felt overwhelmed and didn't really know what to pray about, or when I would pray, I would feel like I was like telling God what to do, which I knew I shouldn't be doing, but I didn't really know what else to do. That those were just kind of the words that would come flowing out of my mouth. And so it was very frustrating. When I would pray kind of just in my head, a lot of times my mind would just start to wander, which again was frustrating. And so I don't really hope that you guys are going through the same thing, but at the same time, I hope that some things that I have to say because of my experience will help you, wherever you're at. So that's kind of a little bit of my background. Now, one scripture I want to share with you guys is Matthew chapter 6. It starts in verse 5. And Jesus is specifically talking about prayer. And this was really impactful for me because of the way that I grew up. And Jesus is talking, and he tells us how to pray and how not to pray. And some of the things that he says is, don't go on and on and on and on and on in your prayers. Don't pray so that people will look at you, things like that. And so for me, I realized through reading that passage that I didn't have to have the perfect prayers. They didn't have to be super long and awesome. I just needed to talk to God and tell him everything. I could tell him how my day was. I could, ask him things. If somebody was hurting, if there was a trouble, I could talk to him about that and ask him for help. And so it doesn't have to be perfect. And so if you're somebody that feels that way, that you are praying really terrible prayers and God probably isn't even listening to them anyway, I want to ensure you that the thoughts that are going through your head are not necessarily accurate. And that's a good thing, to realize that God is listening. And so I want to encourage you with that. And then I actually have some recommendations. So if you are somebody that, like I had mentioned before, like me, when you're praying, you feel like your mind tends to wander, especially if you're doing maybe a quiet time early in the morning, I want to encourage you to pray out loud. This can feel super weird at first, especially if you're not somebody that prays out loud. And so, but I want to encourage you to do it anyway. And this is why. When you pray out loud, your mind has a tendency to stay more focused. And if you find yourself in situations where people want you to pray out loud, and that's really nerve-wracking for you, and you just sometimes, like, your heart just starts beating really, really fast, and you don't know what you're supposed to say, then praying out loud on your own when no one's around, as weird as it can feel, it can really help in making you better at praying out loud and making you feel more comfortable with that. Hi, Cindy. So praying out loud is a really good thing. And like I said, even just doing it on your own when nobody's around is pretty cool. One of the things that I have noticed on my own by praying out loud is, it was kind of weird at first, but then after doing it for a while, I just feel like I'm talking to someone, like I would be talking to a friend that's in the room, which is good. Like for me, that's been really, really good to talk to God like he's there because he is, instead of before when I would just pray in my head all the time. It was like I was praying to this like lucid idea of God as opposed to actually feeling like I was talking to him. And so, so that's one encouragement, is just praying out loud. If you are somebody that just struggles with knowing who to pray for or what to pray, there are lots of really good resources out there. So Power of a Praying Wife is a book that I read a long time ago, and have gotten it back off my shelves quite a few times to just look through it. And so if you're somebody that maybe God's really impressed on your heart to start praying for your husband, maybe that's a good book for you to grab so that you can kind of see some things to pray about for your husband. There's books out there about praying for your kids and things like that as well. One thing that we do that I want to share with you guys is we made this for our kids. It's a prayer jar. I'm pretty sure I found this on Pinterest because that's where I get all my ideas. But you can find these sticks at Michael's, and you get like a box of 200 for like $5 or something. And what we did was we went through every single member of our family, my family and Trent's family. We've got cousins, aunts and uncles, grandparents, and all sorts of stuff. And we put each one of their names on a stick, okay? And so every night before the kids go to bed, after they read their Bible, they go to the jar and pick out a stick, and they pray for a member of the family. Now, when I first did that, I thought that was going to be just like good for the kids. And then just recently I realized like I wanted to start praying more intentional prayers for my husband, for my kids, for some different women that I meet with. And so I made myself my own prayer jar. It's a little more attractive because it's going to be sitting on a bookshelf in my living room, so it's more accessible to me. But same thing. So I've just got some sticks in there. I did mine a little bit different. I have this one's for Evan. I have his name on the front, and then on the back I have started making just like a list of things to start praying for him about, and I can add to that, as things come up. And so I don't know if that will be helpful for you. I'm not a super disciplined person, and so if I can turn anything into kind of like a game, that works out really well for me. And so I don't know, I share that with you so that hopefully it'll help you as well. And if you're not if doing fun little twerky things like that is not your deal, then you can just get yourself a list. Thank you, Wendy, for thinking that's a good idea. You can get yourself a notebook. I know a friend of mine used to do this. She recommended it, and I thought it was an awesome idea. She used to just have a little notebook, and every day she would write down what she prayed for. The cool thing about that is that when she would see God answer a prayer, she would go back in and actually mark that in her notebook as well. And so that's a really cool thing to do, to be able to actually see God answering your prayers, which is, makes you want to pray more, right? When you actually see him answering your prayers. So there's another idea. Those are the big, I don't know, they're not even big ideas. They're just ideas, things that have worked well for me. I hope they'll help you. One thing, if you are somebody that maybe you do have a solid prayer life, you're praying every day in the morning. You know exactly what to pray for. You know exactly who to pray for and what to pray about for that person. But you just kind of feel like your prayer life has gone stale. Then one thing I want to remind you of is just the fact that God is with you. He's omnipresent, meaning he is always with you all the time. He's like the best friend that you have with you all the time. And so don't feel like you have to just pray during your quiet time. You can pray for people all day long. You can pray for your family. You can pray for your situation. If you're at home and you're just stressed out, talk to God about it. Just tell him. You don't have to ask him to like step in. You can just say, hey, I'm really stressed out today. You know, just talk to him like you would if you had your friend over for coffee. And that's when I went through the attributes of God last year with you guys, that attribute of him being omnipresent was like super impactful in my life, and it has actually changed the way I pray and when I pray and things like that, because just knowing that he's always with me. So that's what I have for you guys today. Let me see. Jen just posted something. I need to keep a list of all who I pray for. I can forget until I see that person. Yes. One thing I want to encourage you with when it comes to praying for people is if somebody comes up to you and asks for prayer, you can either like have a notebook in your back pocket that you always keep with you and write their name in there and what they want prayer for, or just pray for them on the spot. Again, like praying out loud, praying for somebody on the spot can seem really, really stressful and can make you really nervous. Once you start doing it a little bit, it will not become as nerve-wracking, and then you know that you've prayed for that person. I forget everything, and so that has been something that I've started to do. I don't do it perfectly, I don't do it every single time, but I've tried to do more of that so that I don't forget. So that is what I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed that. Does anybody have any questions that I can answer real quick? If not, it's okay. If you have any other, maybe you have a suggestion that you would like to add to this conversation, please leave it in a comment below so that everybody else that comes to this video can see it. And I'm sorry, this is my first live post, so I cannot say something. When somebody posts something, posts a comment, my mind goes right to it. And I can't keep saying what I was about to say. That's okay, though. Thank you, Christy, for that comment. I love that. Again, if you have anything you'd like to add, please leave a comment below. If you liked this video, please actually physically like it on Facebook. If you are watching this after the fact on YouTube, same thing. Please like the video. Tell me what you liked. Tell me what you need help with still in the comments below. And then make sure you come back next week. It won't be live, just a normal regular post next week. And we're going to be talking about how to stay consistent with your quiet time, especially now that we've talked about all these steps. We'll talk about how to stay consistent. I hope that'll be an encouragement to you guys as well. Have a great week, you guys. I will see you in the comments.